Chapter 261, Lord Ice God, you think so highly of me. As the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress walked deeper into the cold, a tall phantom suddenly appeared before them. Both women froze, then bowed reverently. In the far north, almost every spirit beast worshipped the Ice God. These two were no exception. The Ice God turned slowly and fixed his gaze on the Ice Empress. Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, he said, when you underwent your 300,000-year breakthrough, you damaged your origin. In your current state, you cannot possibly survive the 400,000-year heavenly tribulation. As your deity, I cannot bear to watch you perish under that tribulation, but the rules of the God realm are strict. Even I cannot break them lightly. I pondered long in the Ice God Palace and finally found a way to help you escape your predicament. He clasped his hands behind his back and raised his gaze to the sky. Snow Empress and Ice Empress looked up at him, both visibly moved. The Ice Empress had not expected the Ice God to value her so highly. Emotion swelled in her eyes and her reverence deepened. What method do you propose? The Ice Empress asked cautiously. Sacrifice, the Ice God replied softly. Sacrifice? The Snow Empress echoed in surprise. The Ice Empress looked confused, unable at first to grasp his meaning. Yes, a sacrifice, the Ice God continued. But the target must have the potential to become a god. By chance, a legacy holder of a supreme god from the god realm has arrived in the far north. I paid a price to persuade that supreme god to accept this method. Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, after you sacrifice yourself to her, you will temporarily lose your life. I will preserve your soul and allow it to reside within her spirit sea. At most for 20 to 30 years. Once she ascends to godhood, you will be resurrected, your damaged origin restored, and you may even skip hundreds of thousands of years of detours, directly taking a god position. To humans, 20 to 30 years is long, but to spirit beasts it is nothing more than a blink, the Ice God explained. Snow Empress and Ice Empress considered his plan. The Ice Empress's crystalline yellow eyes showed eagerness. 20 to 30 years felt like a short nap to her. She could awaken with her origin restored, or even become a god outright. You do not need to decide right now, the Ice God said. First, meet the legacy holder of that supreme god, then make your choice. His gaze settled on the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion. I will guide you to her when the time comes. As he finished, the Ice God's phantom dissolved into motes of light and vanished as if he had never appeared. The two empresses watched the space where he had stood. Then Snow Empress turned to her sister. Binger, what do you think of the Ice God's plan? She asked. The Ice Empress thought for a moment, her expression serious. Shuer, I'm tempted. In my current state, I know I cannot pass the 400,000-year heavenly tribulation. I'm only a few tens of thousands of years from facing it. Facing death under the tribulation, or taking the Ice God's method, this seems the better choice. And the Ice God said I might even become a god and obtain a god position after resurrection. Her tone was solemn. Then meet the legacy holder first, and decide afterwards. Snow Empress nodded. They turned and walked on, their figures soon swallowed by wind and drifting snow. Snowy Domain City, City Lord's Mansion. Feng Xiao, the City Lord, read the letter in his hand aloud to himself. Prince, title, Yaoyang. Fief, Snowy Domain City. He had not expected the pavilion master of the Frost Snow Pavilion to take such a barren fief, but that could be seen as an advantage. Tucking the letter away, he rose and summoned his subordinate commander. Have the city cleaned. Leave 800 men to defend the walls. The rest will come with me to the gate to welcome His Highness Yaoyang. A few days later, Feng Xiao stood at the city gate, watching the distance. Over 200 soldiers stood in formation on either side of the gate. Their armor was worn, but their posture was rigid and disciplined. Even the biting wind could not shake their stance. A carriage bearing the Frost Snow Pavilion's emblem appeared on the horizon. Feng Xiao signaled, and the soldiers turned in unison to face it. As it drew near, Feng Xiao dropped to one knee. Feng Xiao of Snowy Domain City and the city guard respectfully greet Your Highness Yaoyang. He intoned. The soldiers followed suit and knelt as one. The carriage halted and the door opened. Ling Yuan and He Yu stepped out first and stood on either side, respectful and composed. Behind them came Shui Binger, Shui Yuer, and Shui Wu. Ye Shi was the last to step down. tightening her cloak against the cold. Her clear azure eyes swept over Feng Xiao and the 200-odd city guards arrayed before her. "Rise," she said, lifting a hand. She moved forward and watched them with a faint look of surprise. Their synchronization and discipline marked them as a well-trained guard. "Your Highness Yaoyang," Feng Xiao greeted again. "It's cold. Please come to the city lord's mansion. I have prepared a banquet." He led the way, and Ye Shi took in the layout of Snowy Domain City as they walked. The city was small, about the size of Nuading City, and foot traffic was sparse, mostly spirit masters who had come north to train. Still, public order was better than she'd expected. They soon arrived at the city lord's mansion. It was modest and plain. Yi Shi glanced at Feng Xiao with mild surprise. Chapter 262, Mysterious Ice Marrow Facing Ye Shi's Gaze. Feng Xiao coughed awkwardly. "Your Highness Yaoyang, Snowy Domain City is a poor place. There aren't many commoners here, and the annual allotment from above is small, so the city lord's mansion is rather modest." His voice was soft, but edged with helplessness. Ye Shi waved her hand and walked into the mansion ahead of him. Feng Xiao led the way to the main hall, where a few tables were laid out with steaming dishes. There weren't many, but for a desolate place like Snowy Domain City, it was almost a feast. They took their seats, Ye Shi at the head. She picked up her chopsticks and tasted the food. "Feng Xiao, tell me about the city." "Your Highness Yaoyang," Feng Xiao began. "Snowy Domain City currently has just over 700 common folk and 1,000 city guards who keep the city safe. Though the population is small, many spirit masters pass through the far north for training and adventure. They often use Snowy Domain City as a base or buy supplies here, which is the main source of income for the townspeople. There's a spirit hall branch in the center. They come every year to help the children awaken their spirits." Listening to his report, Ye Shi formed a clear picture of the city. It was, as its name suggested, harsh and barren. She had also noticed how well-trained the city guards were. "You take their training seriously," she said. "Snowy Domain City is close to the no man's land," Feng Xiao explained. "The rules are loose here. Rumor has it evil soul masters operate in the far north, so the guards undergo high-intensity drills every 2 days." Yi Shi considered that for a moment, her blue eyes thoughtful. "As my fief, Snowy Domain City cannot stay like this." She set down her chopsticks. "After the banquet, Feng Xiao, take me to inspect the city. I want to renovate it. I will reassign positions within the city. If anyone wants to stay and serve under me, they may. If not, report them and I will arrange transfers elsewhere." When she finished, she dipped a morsel into her bowl and ate. Feng Xiao mentally weighed his options. He was a 4-ring spirit ancestor. With his talent, it was uncertain if he would ever break through to Spirit King. If reassigned, it would likely be to another small, remote city. Staying in Snowy Domain meant a change in position, but the advantage of serving Ye Shi, Prince Yaoyang, who now also held the title of Sect Master of the Upper 3 Sects. It was safer to remain under such a powerful patron. "I wish to remain in Snowy Domain City," he said, standing and bowing with sincere respect. "I know the city well and can continue to be of use." Ye Shi calmly patted his hand, signaling him to sit. The banquet ended quickly. Ye Shi told Shui Binger, Shui Yuer, and Shui Wu to rest in the city lord's mansion, then took Ling Yuan and He Yu with Feng Xiao to tour the city. They walked the empty streets, the cold wind biting, as Feng Xiao talked. Ye Shi mentally planned how she would restructure and rebuild. They moved through the town until they reached the city wall. Feng Xiao was about to describe the surroundings when a sharp cracking sound cut through the air. His gaze dropped to the ground beneath them. The paving was splintering, cracks raced across the earth, and before he could react, the road gave way. He Yu, quick on her feet, grabbed Feng Xiao and kept him from falling. Ling Yuan crouched at the edge, studying the collapse. "This shouldn't have happened," she murmured. From the hole, a chill like bone-deep frost rose up. Ling Yuan's spirit power lit a pale glow in her hand, casting light down into the opening. "It's extremely cold down there." "Hey you, stay above," Ye Shi ordered. "Ling Yuan, come down with me." Ye Shi leaped into the cavity first, Ling Yuan close behind. They dropped about a dozen meters before landing on solid ground. The temperature immediately tightened around them. Ye Shi pulled her cloak close. Ling Yuan held up the spirit light and revealed the scene. Ye Shi's eyes widened with a mix of surprise, shock, and delight. This is 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow. 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow was the finest ice attribute, heaven and earth treasure, an ultimate tonic for spirit beasts and, for ice element spirit masters, a substance that could refine their spirit into absolute ice. The cavern was filled with it, not just one or two pieces, but dozens. Ye Shi's heart quickened. Snowy Domain City Baron? This was an astonishing reserve. Composed, she counted and gathered while Ling Yuan illuminated the chamber. Even with the cold, Ye Shi worked quickly and efficiently, collecting piece after piece. When she finished, they had 45 pieces of 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow. As Ye Shi busied herself, a phantom presence loomed in the air above the cave. The ice god watched silently. "The situation here is resolved," she murmured. "When they return to the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, I will offer guidance when needed. There's a promising little one here. I will keep an eye on her." The figure faded away. With the ice marrow secured, Ye Shi called up, "Ling Yuan, let's go." They climbed back to the surface. Ling Yuan's gaze lingered on the spirit tool in Ye Shi's hand, still trying to take in the sheer quantity they had recovered. This was the first time she had ever seen so much 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow. On the street above, Ye Shi clapped once and looked at Feng Xiao. "Feng Xiao, have this section of road repaired properly. Make it sturdy so it won't collapse unexpectedly." She walked forward with her hands clasped behind her back, her steps noticeably lighter than before. Think how dangerous it would be if a commoner had fallen down there. Chapter 263, Soul Power Level 60, Bottleneck. Returning to the City Lord's mansion, Ye Shi sat in the main seat, picked up the paper and pen before her, and began to write seriously. Ling Yuan and He Yu stood to her left and right, respectively. Feng Xiao stood respectfully in front. "Ling Yuan, go fetch Shui Binger and the others," Ye Shi instructed, her head bowed as she wrote. "Yes, young miss." Ling Yuan agreed and left the hall. A moment later, he returned with Shui Binger, Shui Yuer, Shui Wu, Shi Nian, and the others, who took their places respectfully on both sides. "Binger, from today on you will be the City Lord of Snowy Domain City," Ye Shi said. "Yuer and Shui Wu will be your deputies, and for now, Feng Xiao will assist you in managing the city." She looked at He Yu. "He Yu, you will stay in Snowy Domain City for the time being and help me establish a 3,000-person night order. Shi Nian, you will temporarily serve under Binger." She continued, "Later I'll arrange for 2 spirit Douluo and 3 spirit saints to come and guard Snowy Domain City." Ye Shi set down her pen. "Hallmaster, we will manage Snowy Domain City well for you," Shui Binger said as she bowed first. Shui Yuer, Shui Wu, and the others followed suit. "As for the 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow, each of you 3 will receive 1. Ye Shi produced 3 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow and handed them to Shui Binger, Shui Yuer, and Shui Wu. At the sight of the marrow, their eyes lit with fervor and their breaths quickened. "Go back and absorb them first," Ye Shi waved them off. After they withdrew, Ye Shi looked at Ling Yuan. "These 2 letters, one should be sent back to Frost Snow Pavilion, the other please send home. For the renovation of Snowy Domain City, I only trust Niu Gao's defense clan to handle it." Having given her instructions, Ye Shi rose and walked to the best room in the City Lord's mansion. Ling Yuan took the letters and left. In the best room, Ye Shi briefly inspected the modest but tidy chamber, sat cross-legged on the bed, closed her eyes, and entered a cultivation state. Her spirit power was at level 59, 1 step from 60. Time passed slowly. Her spirit power climbed steadily, and when the 59 bottleneck shattered, her spirit finally reached level 60. Her sapphire blue eyes opened, but a wave of drowsiness flooded her mind and her body sagged backward. "As expected, the slumber has returned," she murmured before falling into a deep sleep. A warm sensation spread through her, making her sleep comfortable and restorative. Heaven Do City. In the Tiando Royal Palace, Shui Qingyi, who was handling state affairs, felt an abnormal stir in his spirit and slowly looked northward. He thought to himself, has sheer spirit power reached level 60? It seemed her spirit was about to transform again. Angel God had said the last time that Ye Shi's next slumber would begin at level 60, so the disturbance did not surprise him. After a while, he withdrew his gaze and resumed his duties. God Realm. Shura God's Hall. Asura God and Ice God sat opposite each other, each holding a wineglass. Brother Asura, don't you think it's too much of a coincidence? Ice God said, turning his glass. The ground collapse in Snowy Domain City just happened to let your legacy find the 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow. Maybe this is deep luck. As my legacy, it's natural she would have deep luck, Asura God said with a pleased look. Next time it might even be mysterious ice marrow. Mysterious ice marrow is ordinary, dispensable, Ice God replied, but his tone carried another meaning. But that spirit beast. Asura God raised his eyes slightly. I've told you, the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion is also interested. The outcome depends on its own choice. However, if your legacy tries to absorb a vicious beast spirit ring now, it might be strenuous. Do you want me to add a few seals to help? Ice God drained his wine. It depends on the situation. Asura God smiled. Ice God nodded, set his glass down, and left the hall. Watching him go, Asura God put down his own glass and closed his eyes. On the continent, in Snowy Domain City, Yeishi's deep slumber continued. In her spirit sea, the evil god bead transformed into pure energy and merged with her slaughter angel spirit, spreading through her limbs and bones and being completely absorbed. Her spirit fully transformed into a 10-winged slaughter angel. Because she had fully absorbed the evil god bead, her spirit now held 4 attributes: space, evil, lightning, and wind. Her sapphire blue eyes opened. Yeshi sat up and saw Ling Yuan seated beside the bed. Ling Yuan, how long have I been asleep this time? She asked as she assessed her condition. Her body had improved greatly. Her physique and mental force had leaped forward. Roughly estimated, her overall strength had doubled. She could now contend with an 8-ring spirit Douluo. Whether she could decisively win was another matter. You slept for 17 days this time, Ling Yuan said thoughtfully as he poured a glass of water and handed it to her. 17 days. Yeshi took a sip. Let's go see where the far north spirit beasts are active. I need to attach a spirit ring now. She rose and left the city lord's mansion with Ling Yuan at her side. They traveled straight into the far north. After about 2 hours, they passed a warning sign. Spirit beasts active. Danger. After a glance, they pressed on. In the far north, unless they encountered one of the 3 kings of the region, they would not be in danger. Those 3 were the Ice and Snow Goddess, Snow Empress, the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, Ice Empress, and the Titan Snow Devil King, Tai. Yeshi and Ling Yuan trudged across the vast white snow, heading deeper in. How old a spirit beast are we looking for this time? Ling Yuan asked softly. At least 90,000 years, close to 100,000, Yeshi said after a moment's thought. Of course, if we can find a 100,000-year-old one, that would be best. Chapter 264, First Meeting with Hyote the Far North, Core Area. The Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, lying beside the Snow Empress, suddenly felt the Ice God's voice resonate in her mind. She's here. I will guide you to where she is. At the Ice God's words, the Scorpion rose. Shuer, the Ice God says someone has arrived. I should go and see. The Scorpion looked at the Snow Empress. Binger, do you need me to stay with you? No. The Snow Empress's voice was soft. Go and take a look first. If she is truly worthy, I'll come and bid farewell to Shuer myself. The Scorpion's expression hardened. The Snow Empress hesitated for a moment, then, with a gentle stroke across the Scorpion's head, nodded. Go. Not far from the core area, Yeshi and Ling Yuan were searching for a suitable spirit beast. Ling Yuan kept probing the surroundings with her mental force, then abruptly stopped. She stepped in front of Yeshi and extended a hand, her gaze fixed on the core area, solemn. Within the range of her perception, a powerful spirit beast was approaching, and it was moving very fast. Miss, be careful. Ling Yuan released her spirit and took a defensive stance. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 spirit rings flashed beneath her feet. Ahead, the sky filled with flying snow. A scorpion about 1.5 meters long appeared, its carapace split in color, one part ice blue, the other emerald green. Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, Snow Empress, Yishi's breath caught. The Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's eyes swept over Ling Yuan and then settled on Yeshi, studying her quietly. For a moment no one spoke, only the cold wind ruffled Yeshi's hair and she tightened her coat. I mean no harm, Yeshi said first, breaking the silence. The Scorpion spoke before either of the others, calm. Hearing that, Ye signaled for Ling Yuan to fall back. If the scorpion had intended to attack, it would have done so already. Have we offended you? Ye asked. If this is your domain, we can withdraw. I came looking for you, Ye added after a pause. The Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion looked straight into her eyes. Looking for me? Ye blinked, confused. The scorpion then briefly explained the situation, how the Snow Empress had offered something extraordinary, how spirit rings, hundreds of thousands of years old, seemed to be delivering themselves to the door. Ye and Ling Yuan listened with matching disbelief. What luck is this? Ling Yuan murmured. Spirit rings that come to you, and they're over 100,000 years? Ye turned to the Snow Empress, who lay nearby. The Snow Empress was no ordinary 100,000-year beast. She was a vicious beast with a cultivation exceeding 300,000 years. Anyone would be tempted by an opportunity like that, but you at least need to let me see your strength and potential first, the Snow Empress said plainly. If you fail, what then? She was frank. She was preparing to sacrifice herself and needed to know there was a reasonable chance of success. She required at least a 50% chance before she would consent. Ye scarcely hesitated. She had never gone all out before, but the Snow Empress in front of her was more than enough to push her. Besides, her spirit had just completed its transformation. All right, she said. Miss, isn't this a bit… Ling Yuan began in concern, but Ye cut her off. It's fine. Ye waved her hand casually. The 10-winged slaughter angel spirit appeared behind her. 1 yellow, 2 purple, and 2 black spirit rings shimmered beneath her feet. The slaughter domain radiated out from her body. With the soft flap of her wings, Ye rose into the air and faced the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion. Interesting, the Scorpion murmured, gesturing for her to begin. First spirit ability, Blood Soul Blessing. Second spirit ability, Soul Devouring Gaze. Third spirit ability, Blade of Slaughter. Fifth spirit ability, Evil God's Descent. Ability after ability flared forth. Ye aura surged to its peak. The blade of slaughter in her hand lifted as the slaughter domain tightened around her. With a beat of her wings, she dove at the scorpion. As she closed the distance, her body blurred and merged into space. The scorpion's emerald tail flicked, a hint of surprise in its eyes. Oh, spatial attribute? It thought, then thrust its tail outward. A clear ding rang as the scorpion's tail met the blade of slaughter. The scorpion felt the power behind that strike and the strength of Ye attack. It considered the force carefully. Is this truly power from a spirit king? It wondered. It feels almost as strong as a titled Douluo. Ye vanished into space again and reappeared. This time, lightning crackled along the blade of slaughter as she struck. The scorpion raised its front claws to block and lashed out with its tail. Metal and chitin rang against each other as blade met tail and claw met steel. Ye figure moved constantly in midair, phasing in and out of space to land blows, while the scorpion alternated between defense and counterattack. Most of the time, it found itself repelling her assaults. From the scorpion's perspective, Ye strength was undeniable. Although she only showed 5 spirit rings at the moment, her combat power was only slightly below a titled Douluo. She clearly had the ability to fight beyond her rank, and her talent was exceptional. The ice god's prediction seems likely to be correct, the scorpion calculated, but it did not slow its counterattacks. Ye parried another strike, and the slaughter sword appeared in her left hand. Now wielding 2 long blades, she pressed the attack even harder, slashing toward the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion. Feeling the keen edge of the twin blades, the scorpion didn't meet her head-on this time. It dodged while launching a counterattack of its own. The clash continued, relentless. Ling Yuan watched Ye battling the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion with eyes full of admiration. The scorpion hadn't gone all out, but from the power Ye displayed, Ling Yuan reckoned that in a few years, Ye might not need anyone to protect her. After a clash, Ye body skidded across the snow, leaving a long trail behind. She steadied herself, scanned the scorpion as if calculating something, and sent the slaughter sword flying. Under the scorpion's spatial attribute, the sword vanished midair. The Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion watched every movement, remembering their earlier collisions and drawing a conclusion. The slaughter sword could truly harm her. She had to be cautious. Ye blurred into motion, leaving after images. She reappeared before the scorpion, gripping the slaughter sword with both hands and sweeping it upward. The scorpion met the strike with her front pincers. At that moment, spatial ripples flickered behind her, and the slaughter sword shot out from the void. "Smart," the scorpion muttered. She flicked her tail, striking the sword's hilt and driving it into the snow. Yishi's spirit ring flickered, and she unleashed her fourth spirit ability, Angel's Roar. A piercing sound radiated outward from her, vibrating the scorpion's spiritual sea and making her uncomfortable. The scorpion pushed back with her pincers. "Enough," she warned. Yeshi pulled the slaughter sword free from the snow, withdrew her spirit, and walked back to Lingyuan's side. "Ice Empress, how did I do?" "Are you asking if I'm satisfied?" The Ice Empress replied crisply as she took the weapon. "Very powerful." She studied Yeshi with crystal yellow eyes. "Although you only have 5 spirit rings, your combat strength is comparable to a human with 8. The Ice Empress's tone grew grave as she considered the sacrifice she was about to make. Ice God would not deceive her. Her thoughts insisted. But if she sacrificed herself, there would be no turning back. If she didn't, she couldn't survive the 400,000-year heavenly tribulation. She had little time left and might never find a human of greater talent. He who hesitates is lost. She would trust Ice God and take the risk. Her expression hardened into resolve. "Human, I've explained everything. I have one question. If you succeed, will you revive me?" Yeshi met her gaze without wavering. "Yes," she answered decisively. "If you don't trust me, I can swear an oath to Ice God right now." That steady look made the Ice Empress nod. "Wait here a moment. I'm going to say goodbye to my sister." She turned toward the core area. Yeshi closed her eyes and sat cross-legged, her azure gaze flickering as she considered the gravity of what was about to happen. The Ice Empress had a cultivation age above 300,000 years. Could Yeshi's body truly absorb that much energy? Even if the Empress sacrificed willingly, the energy in a 300,000-year spirit ring was immense. "With me here, you need not worry," a majestic voice said in Yeshi's mind. She recognized it instantly. Asura God. A small smile touched her lips. It seemed likely Asura God was nudging events behind the scenes, which would explain why Ice God would favor the Ice Empress so much. The Empress herself had no prior ties to Ice God that would justify such aid. In the core area, the Snow Empress looked up when she heard the commotion. A faint smile appeared when she saw the returning Ice Empress. "Binger, you're back." The Ice Empress stopped beside her. "Schwer, I came to say goodbye. I've decided to follow Ice God's method. He said it would be only 20 or 30 years at most. When I return, I might even have a god position." She drew a long breath and spoke solemnly. "I'll come back. Please wait for me." The Snow Empress touched her sister gently. "Don't worry. If anything happens, send word to the far north to find me." "Understood," the Ice Empress said, then turned and left with quiet resolve. "Binger, I hope you succeed. May Ice God favor you." The Snow Empress lifted her head to the azure sky. The Ice Empress walked slowly at first, taking in the familiar surroundings. "If I've decided, then I must go all out," she muttered to herself. Hesitation would only cost her the chance. Her pace quickened, and she soon returned to where Yeshi sat. She halted a short distance away. "Are you ready?" she asked. "You should know my energy is overwhelming. Even if I restrain it during the sacrifice, some will overflow." "Be careful," the Ice Empress warned, the seriousness of the situation weighing in her voice. "I'm ready," Yeshi replied, meeting her gaze. "One thing, don't integrate my spirit bone directly into your body. You have your own set. If it merges with yours, it could be difficult to separate later." The Ice Empress nodded. A brilliant green light issued from her body, and a special sacrificial domain coalesced around them. Domineering power, like a mountain's roar and a tidal surge, flowed toward Yeshi. An intense cold radiated from Yeshi as that force integrated into her, settling into her bones and veins. From night to day and back to night again, the cold bit at their faces as huge snowflakes blanketed the boundless extreme north ice plain. Snow clung to Yeshi's clothes and hair. Lingyuan stood a short distance away, watching her silently, guarding her. Without warning, Lingyuan moved and positioned herself directly in front of Yeshi. A faint fluctuation of spirit power radiated from her, and under her steady gaze, the Snow Empress's figure coalesced out of the falling snow and stood before them. I mean no harm, the Snow Empress said. You don't need to be so tense, Ling Yuan replied. All right, Yeshi gave one word and let Ling Yuan continue to shield her. Time passed in the cold and no one spoke. Then a fair arm pushed through the drifts. Who? Yeshi exhaled, shivering. So cold. She stepped out of the snowbank and tightened her cloak around herself. At her feet, 6 spirit rings glowed in turn, 1 yellow, 2 purple, 2 black, and 1 red. After fully absorbing the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion Spirit Ring, Yeshi's spirit power had surged. She had reached Spirit Emperor, level 65. 6th Soul Skill, Sigh of Ice and Snow, centered on the user, releases an extreme cold domain that freezes all opponents inside it while slowing and restricting their movements. Ice Sword Judgment consumes spirit power to form countless ice swords in an area of effect attack that ignores all soul skill defenses. Being struck will gradually freeze the target. It can also fuse those swords into a single, guided blade that locks onto an enemy and bypasses any soul skill defenses for a devastating judgment. Yeshi was very pleased with the 2 skills the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion had granted. The Ice Sword Judgment, usable for both wide area and single target strikes and capable of ignoring soul skill defenses, was almost like a godly technique. You all right, young miss? Ling Yuan asked. She took a blanket from a spirit tool and draped it over Yeshi. I'm fine, just cold, Yeshi said, smiling. I'm not that fragile. Yeshi folded the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion Spirit Bone away into her tool and turned her attention to the Snow Empress a short distance off. Snow Empress? She said tentatively. The Snow Empress's voice was soft. I came to see the one Binger chose. Now that you've completely absorbed Binger's spirit ring, Binger's soul should have been preserved, right? The Snow Empress asked. The Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's soul is in my spiritual sea. Do you wish to see Binger? Yeshi answered calmly. No, I'm returning to the core area. The Snow Empress's tone was gentle. If you need help, come to the core area and find me. You and Binger now share a fate. I hope you don't put yourself in danger. Before she turned to go, Yeshi hurried after her. Wait! She produced 2 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow from her spirit tool and held them out. I found these by chance. Snow Empress, I thought you might be able to use them. The Snow Empress's eyes widened when she saw them. 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow was an extremely rare heaven and earth treasure, perfect for accelerating cultivation. Binger already sacrificed for you, Yeshi continued. These 2 should be kept for Binger. The Snow Empress hesitated and gently shook her head. I already have some 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow. No, these are for you. I've saved more for Binger. Yeshi smiled. The Snow Empress considered for a moment, then reached out and accepted the marrows. Her manner toward Yeshi relaxed. Thank you. I usually stay near the core group of the ice plane, she said. If I need you, I'll come. I know. Yeshi nodded. The Snow Empress departed toward the core, her pale form soon swallowed by the drifting snow. Watching her go, Yeshi's lips curved into a soft smile. Back inside Yeshi's spiritual sea, the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's voice chimed, thin and incredulous. 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow? How many did you keep? Yeshi answered aloud in the silent sea. 40. For a long beat, there was stunned silence. 40? Are you sure you don't mean ordinary mysterious ice marrow? The 2 only differ by 2 characters, but their effects are worlds apart. It's definitely 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow, Yeshi replied, amused. I saved 40 for you. Yeshi, we share a fate now. I gave everything, my life, my hope, my spirit bone and spirit ring to you. Aren't we life and death friends? Given that, shouldn't you have reserved more for me? The Scorpion protested, but its tone slipped from indignation to pleading. When did you risk your life for me? Yeshi teased. Your sacrifice saved me, didn't it? Of course, I'll keep most of the marrows for you. When those words registered, the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion instantly brightened. It began to imagine how best to use them. If it could be reborn to a godly state, those marrows could push it even further. If not, it could share the spoils with its sister Shuer, and they could both advance. Satisfied with the plan, the Scorpion scanned its spiritual domain, settled itself near the core area, and slowly closed its eyes. Outside, Yeshi and Ling Yuan walked side by side through the wind and snow. Yeshi tucked the blanket tighter and her face shone with contentment, The rewards from this trip to the extreme north had been tremendous. Ling Yuan followed a half-step behind, glancing at Ye Shi's happy expression and letting a small smile appear. Chapter 267, Hanhai City. They returned to Snowy Domain City and entered the main hall of the city lord's mansion. Shui Binger sat at a side seat, handling affairs. The moment she saw Ye Shi, she rose and bowed with evident respect. "Pavilion Master, you're back." Her voice was reverent. "Sit," Ye Shi said. "Have you all finished absorbing the 10,000-year mysterious ice marrow?" Shui Binger asked. "How much did it improve you?" Ye Shi took a seat nearby and met Shui Binger's gaze with a slight smile. "After absorbing the marrow, the improvement for me, Yuer, and Shui Wu was tremendous. I'm now a level 57 Spirit King," Ye Shi continued. "Yuer is level 55, and Shui Wu is level 54. Yuer and I have even had our spirits transform into Ultimate Ice. Shui Wu hasn't quite reached Ultimate Ice yet, but he's very close." Shui Binger's lips curved. "It sounds like your cultivation path will be much smoother from here on out." "Soon Ling Yuan and I will leave," Ye Shi said. "Snowy Domain City will be in your care. The personnel I'm sending to assist you might take some time to arrive. Snowy Domain City is in a difficult state now, but over the next few years, it will be a major development area for the Frost Snow Pavilion. It's even possible the pavilion will station there permanently. Heiyu will remain temporarily. If anything arises that Heiyu can't handle, yield where you must and send word to me. I'll dispatch someone to deal with it. Above all, put your safety first." Ye Shi's tone was earnest. She remembered Feng Xiao's warning about evil soul masters in the far north. Shui Binger's expression turned serious, and she nodded. Ye Shi motioned for Shui Binger to sit, then caught Ling Yuan's eye. Ling Yuan understood and stepped out of the hall while Ye Shi closed her eyes to rest. About half an hour later, Ling Yuan returned and came to Ye Shi's side. "Young miss, the carriages are ready," she said softly. Ye Shi opened her eyes, nodded, rose, and left the hall. Shui Binger, Shui Yuer, Shui Wu, Shi Nian, Feng Xiao, and the others followed. They saw Ye Shi into the carriage. Ling Yuan took the reins and the carriage pulled away. The group bowed respectfully until it disappeared. Then they returned to the mansion to resume their duties. Vast Sea City lay on the coast and was the largest, most prosperous city in the Heaven Do Empire, after Heaven Do City itself. On its bustling streets, Qian Renshui led Du Guyan and Ye Lingling toward the port. "We'll rent a ship at the port," she said softly. "When she arrives in Vast Sea City, we can set out straight for Sea God Island." They had left Heaven Do City half a month earlier after handling matters there. Now, after 2 weeks of travel, they had finally reached Vast Sea City. Du Guyan tilted her head. "Sea God Island? What's that? We've never heard of it." Qian Renshui explained briefly. Sea God Island is where the legacy of the Sea God is kept. The Sea God was a divinity long ago. When a Spirit Master's power breaks from level 99 to level 100, they can ascend to the God realm and become a divinity. You aren't at that level yet, and a lot of the details would be beyond you. For now, know that we're going to Sea God Island to undergo a trial to increase our strength. Du Guyan and Ye Lingling exchanged glances and nodded, still a little puzzled but accepting the answer. "I'm curious about one thing," Ye Lingling said. "Who is stronger, you or our pavilion master?" Qian Renshui asked calmly, "Do you know Ling Yuan?" "We do," Du Guyan and Ye Lingling replied together. "Ling Yuan usually protects Xi'er when she travels." Qian Renshui smiled faintly. "Do you see me bringing an escort?" Ever since Ye Shi's spirit transformed, Qian Renshui's spirit had also changed into the 10-winged angel, and her strength had risen accordingly. Hearing that, Du Guyan and Ye Lingling fell silent, thoughtful, and followed her along. At the port, they searched for a suitable vessel and soon settled on a sea demon ship, a 50-meter-long, 20-meter-wide hull reinforced with thick iron-gray armor. From its appearance, it was an impressive, sturdy vessel. After renting it, Qian Renshui took the two girls to a hotel in the city to wait for Ye Shi. Time passed day by day. About 2 months later, on an ancient road in the western outskirts of Vast Sea City, a carriage traveled swiftly. Ling Yuan drove, her eyes flicking toward a small village ahead. "Young miss, something's wrong," she said. "The village ahead is eerily quiet. There isn't a soul in the fields." Her brow tightened. "Let's go take a look." "Yes, young miss. came Yeshi's voice from inside the carriage. Ling Yuan brought the carriage to a stop, a short distance from the village. Yeshi stepped down and walked with her toward it. From where they stood, it was clear the village had been attacked recently. Houses were damaged to varying degrees, and fresh blood stained the ground. The incident had happened not long ago. Chapter 268, Bloodthirsty Wolf Bandit. Yeshi frowned as she took in the scene in the village. She said nothing, but her toes tapped the ground, and like an arrow loosed from a bow, she shot forward. Ling Yuan followed silently at her side. They entered the village to find large patches of blood staining the ground. Following the trail led them to a group of people at the far end of the street. When the scene resolved, Yeshi felt her stomach turn and nearly vomited. Roughly 300 figures stood before them, big, powerful-bodied people with thick fur, bared teeth, and faces painted in bright oils. They dragged bodies by the limbs. Children's corpses were impaled on long spears. Some had intestines spilling onto the earth. Wolf taken? Ling Yuan breathed. Wolf taken inside the Heaven Do Empire? Yeshi's voice was cold. Ling Yuan came to her side and gently stroked her back to steady her. There are survivors among them, she added. Save the living. Leave no wolf taken alive. Yeshi's eyes turned hard. The slaughter sword appeared in her hand without sound. At her command, Ling Yuan leapt forward and released her spirit. The 10-winged slaughter angel spirit manifested behind Yeshi. 6 spirit rings, 1 yellow, 2 purple, 2 black, and 1 red, glimmered at Yeshi's feet. A spatial rift opened before her. She stepped through and in an instant reappeared in the midst of the wolf-taken. The slaughter sword fell without mercy, cleaving a wolf-taken beside her. Crimson sprays turned into drifting blood blossoms as the creature fell. The others turned, eyes bright with bloodlust, and attacked. Wolf-taken were akin to low-level spirit beasts, outrageously strong for humans, able to manipulate wind and roughly comparable to a 2-ringed great spirit beast or a 3-ringed spirit elder. But that strength meant little against Yeshi and Ling Yuan. The two moved through the pack like killers through empty grass, slashing and cutting without hesitation. The stench of iron and fresh blood hung about them. When the last wolf-taken hit the dirt, Yeshi scanned the area. She moved to the bound survivors and cut their ropes. Thank you, spirit masters," one of the villagers stammered, gratitude and shock mingling in their eyes. Around them lay the bodies of neighbors and children, and the air was heavy with grief. Yeshi sheathed the slaughter sword. From her storage bracelet, she produced food in a small cloth bag of scattered gold coins, setting them before the survivors. She said nothing as she turned and left with Ling Yuan. The villagers watched them go, mouths opening as if to speak, then closing again. No words could have matched what they felt. Yeshi and Ling Yuan did not hurry, yet in a few breaths they were gone, as if they had never been there. Back in the carriage, Yeshi leaned against the cushions and closed her eyes. "Head to Vast Sea City," she told Ling Yuan. "Inform the Spirit Hall main hall and the City Lord of Vast Sea City so they can handle the aftermath." Ling Yuan nodded and steered the carriage in that direction. By dusk, the carriage rolled into Vast Sea City. Ling Yuan stopped in front of a hotel and helped Yeshi down. While Yeshi entered the inn, Ling Yuan went on toward the Spirit Hall main hall to report the incident. At the most luxurious room, Yeshi knocked. The door opened and Qian Renshui's familiar figure appeared. "Sheer, you've finally arrived in Vast Sea City," she said, smiling, but her smile faltered when she noticed the specks of blood on Yeshi's clothing and the faint metallic smell. "Did something happen on the way?" Qian Renshui asked, one hand resting on Yeshi's shoulder as she scanned her for injuries. "I ran into some wolf-taken and dealt with them," Yeshi said casually. "I'm fine, no need to fuss." She stepped inside and headed straight for the bathing area. "Do you want me to bring you something to eat?" Qian Renshui asked softly. "No need. I don't have much appetite," Yeshi called from the bathroom. Qian Renshui sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the steady rush of water. Half an hour later, the stream stopped, and Yeshi emerged, barefoot and wrapped in a towel. Qian's eyes brightened at the sight. She took the towel and started drying Yeshi's hair. "So what happened with the wolf-taken?" Qian asked as she worked. Yeshi recounted what they'd found: 300 wolf-taken, the slaughter, the bound survivors, the children on spears. Qian Renshui listened intently, nodding at the right moments. They must have come over from the Star Luo Empire border, she mused. There shouldn't be wolf taken inside the Heaven Dew Empire's territory. She tossed the towel aside and studied Yeshi more closely. It's fortunate you found them when you did. Yeshi flopped back on the huge, soft bed and rested her legs against Qian Renshui's. The journey had been long, and the bed's comfort wrapped around her like a balm. Sister, she said, eyes half closed, you won't believe how lucky I was in the far north. Qian Renshui's hand paused on Yeshi's leg. How lucky? Yeshi's voice was calm. I got a vicious beast spirit ring, more than 300,000 years old. Qian Renshui froze, then looked at her with sudden disbelief. 300,000 years? Chapter 269. Is your relationship okay? Yeshi's lips curved into a smile. Her bright, jewel-like blue eyes blinked open, and she gave a small nod toward Qian Renshui. She didn't speak, but the gesture made it clear that Qian Renshui hadn't heard what she'd said earlier. Qian Renshui studied Yeshi's expression, bafflement clouding her face. She already knew Yeshi had reached Six-Ring Spirit Emperor, but a Six-Ring Spirit Emperor taking a vicious beast spirit ring over 300,000 years old was unheard of. How could that be possible? Their gazes met, Yeshi's eyes full of amusement, Qian Renshui's full of disbelief. Silence settled in the room. Inside Yeshi's spirit sea, the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion felt the shift. Its crystalline yellow eyes narrowed with suspicion. The way these two sisters acted together felt off. Sisters could be close, but this seemed to cross some invisible line. A worried, speculative murmur ran through its mind. They wouldn't be that kind of relationship, would they? Probably not. If they were, could Shui's sister and I? A mischievous idea sparkled in the scorpion's eyes. It raised its front pincers to hide its face and let out a chittering laugh. Outside in the real world, Yeshi flinched at the sound of laughter from her spirit sea. If the scorpion hadn't made a sound, she might have almost forgotten the Snow Empress even existed in her inner world. She let her consciousness sink in and promptly closed off the spirit sea's perception of the outside. Yeshi, what are you doing? Why did you block the spirit sea's perception? The Snow Empress's voice echoed, but Yeshi ignored it. Qian Renshui reached out and hooked an arm around Yeshi's waist, curious. Sheer, how did you get your spirit ring? Yeshi told Qian Renshui, briefly, how she had obtained the Snow Empress's spirit ring. As Qian Renshui listened, a glow of envy crept into her eyes. Who wouldn't want a vicious beast spirit ring that old? Even a 100,000-year ring was a coveted prize. Among titled Douluo, those with such spirit rings were rare. When my spirit power reaches level 80, I want to find a spirit ring over 100,000 years too, Qian Renshui said earnestly. She looked at Yeshi, then at the room, and slowly dimmed the lights. She drew the curtain around the bed and smoothed a stray lock of hair from Yeshi's temple. You've been traveling a long time, she murmured. Get some rest. In the dim room, soft, private noises rose from the bed. In the spirit sea, cut off from the outside, the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion couldn't hear Yeshi's reply. It lay there, curiosity gnawing at it, its crystalline eyes bright with questions. It wanted to know what Yeshi was doing. The feeling was like being teased by a cat. Without an answer, it could only wait. A night passed quietly. Morning found Duguyan and Ye Lingling leaving their rooms. They saw Ling Yuan sitting in the main hall, leisurely eating breakfast, and exchanged surprised looks. Elder Ling Yuan, what are you doing in Vast Sea City? Duguyan asked. Where's Xiaoxi? She arrived last night, Ling Yuan replied. The young miss should still be resting. Ling Yuan motioned for Duguyan and Ye Lingling to sit. They joined her at the table and finished breakfast together. Then Ling Yuan closed her eyes and rested while the two younger women glanced toward Qian Renshui's room, waiting. Time passed. It was past noon when Qian Renshui finally emerged. Duguyan was about to speak when Qian Renshui waved them over. You two pack your things. When Sheer wakes, we'll head to the port. Then Qian Renshui left the hotel to buy supplies in Vast Sea City. Xiaoxi still hasn't woken? Duguyan asked, checking the hour. She recalled that at Frost Snow Pavilion, Yeshi would have been up by now. She's been traveling a long time. It's normal for her to sleep a bit longer, Ling Yuan said, waving them off. Duguyan and Ye Lingling went to pack. Evening came. Yeshi finally opened her eyes and sat up. She dressed, picked up the wooden comb on the dressing table and began to comb her hair while opening the Spirit Sea's perception. The Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's voice came through immediately. Ye Shi, why did you close the Spirit Sea's perception yesterday? I have something to ask. Ye Shi yawned and answered slowly. Go on. Is your relationship with your sister off? The Scorpion's tone was unusually grave. Ye Shi paused. Off how? You know, just like you're thinking. The Scorpion's voice twinkled and, despite itself, a mental image of the Snow Empress flashed through its mind. It let out a soft, chittering laugh. Don't you also like the Snow Empress? Ye Shi set the comb down and rose from her chair. How do you know? The Scorpion gasped in surprise. Rumors of that nature hadn't made it beyond the core of the far north, and Ye Shi hadn't been there long enough for anyone to tell her. The Scorpion had never mentioned it. How had she found out? Guess, Ye Shi said lightly. She stepped out of her room, and the moment she did, she felt everyone's gazes, Qian Renshui, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, Ling Yuan, and the others, fixed on her. What's wrong? She asked, looking down at herself, searching for any clue, but she saw nothing out of the ordinary. Chapter 270, Sea Devil. Xiaoxi, you seem to have woken up a little late today. Du Guyan watched Ye Shi stroll over, his eyes flicking briefly. It's a 2-month trip from Snowy Domain City to Vast Sea City. After all that travel, it's normal to sleep in a bit. Ye Shi checked the time, her indigo eyes slipping toward Qian Renshui at her side. Qian Renshui met her look, innocence written plainly across her features. All right, she said. I've already arranged everything with the Sea Devil. We'll go straight to the port, board, and then sail to Sea God Island. Qian Renshui took Ye Shi's hand and led her out of the inn. Du Guyan and Ye Lingling exchanged a glance, rose, and fell in step behind them. Ling Yuan walked a half step behind Ye Shi. They left the hotel and headed west toward Vast Sea City, following the reef-cut path that led to the port. At the pier, the hull of the Sea Devil loomed before them. Welcome aboard the Sea Devil, a voice called. I'm Hyder, the captain. Welcome, young ladies. I hope you enjoy the journey. Allow me to be of service. Hyder made a gentlemanly bow, his gaze sweeping over the group as he escorted them aboard and began to introduce the vessel. The Sea Devil's crew numbers 8 in total, myself as captain, 1 first mate, and 6 crewmen. The ship has 3 decks. You will be staying on the upper 2 decks. My crew and I occupy the lower deck cabins. As Hyder spoke, Qian Renshui and Ye Shi took in the ship's layout. A chill breeze off the sea whipped their hair, sharpening the air. Thank you, Captain Hyder. Ye Shi smiled and answered pleasantly. No trouble at all. Anchor away! Raise the sails, Hyder called. With that command, the Sea Devil cast off. As Hyder turned, Ye Shi, Qian Renshui, and Ling Yuan all glanced in the same direction. A crewman had been watching them since they boarded, his stare laced with something like ill intent. None of them made a scene. The sailors handled the ropes and lines. Soon the ship cleared the harbor and pushed into open water. Once they were out at sea, Hyder ordered the mainsail up and set their course. On deck, Ye Shi, Qian Renshui, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, Ling Yuan, and the others settled into the lounge chairs, letting the ocean breeze and the wide view calm them. For those who had never seen the sea, its vastness and grandeur were difficult to comprehend. Light scattered across the endless water, turning the surface into a sheet of shimmering silver. Ling Yuan, keep an eye on the crew. If any of them have bad intentions, throw them overboard to feed the fish, Ye Shi said with a relaxed tilt of her head, hands folded behind her. This subordinate understands, Ling Yuan replied readily. You can rest assured, young miss, Hyder added politely from a short distance away. Qian Renshui's face remained impassive as she listened. Du Guyan and Ye Lingling exchanged astonished looks at Ye Shi's cool confidence. They might not be ordinary crewmen, Qian Renshui murmured. They could be pirates. We should be prepared, Du Guyan said quietly. Qian Renshui produced 2 glasses of juice from a spirit tool and handed one to Ye Shi. Pirates, huh? Do you want to strike first? Du Guyan asked, pondering aloud. We can't be sure, Ye Shi said as she took a sip. Then, turning to Du Guyan, she asked lightly, Besides, can you sail a ship? Du Guyan glanced at the Sea Devil's deck and, without answering, lay back on his chair. Ye Lingling looked to Ling Yuan, unconcerned. Ye Shi would handle anything that came up. The deck fell into a comfortable hush as everyone closed their eyes. Ling Yuan slipped into a state of heightened awareness, sending out her spiritual sense to watch the crew's every move. Soon, footsteps approached. Everyone opened their eyes as Hyder returned with a tray. "My ladies, you probably haven't eaten yet. I've prepared some fresh sea fish and vegetables. Would you like to try some?" Yishi sat up, eyeing the tray. "I'm a bit hungry," she admitted. Hyder set the tray down before her. "If it's not enough, tell me and I'll have more brought up." He bowed to them all with practiced courtesy before departing. Yishi picked up the bowl and chopsticks and tasted the fish. It wasn't extraordinary, but it was decent, enough to fill her stomach. "Sister, won't you try some?" Qian Renshui asked. "We already had dinner," Yishi said. Through the evening, Qian Renshui teased with a smile. The meaning was plain. Yishi returned the smile with a brief, quiet glance that needed no words. After the meal, the sky had gone fully dark. They left the deck and made their way to the second deck, where 6 private cabins were laid out, more than enough for the 5 of them. 2 rooms would remain empty. Naturally, Yishi and Qian Renshui shared one. The cabins were simply furnished, just a bed and a desk, but spotless and comfortable. Yishi and Qian Renshui sat on their bed and then, almost at the same time, leaned back and lay down. They exchanged a look and both smiled. "We'll be at sea for over 10 more days. I wonder how Tian Yao is doing on Sea God Island," Yishi said softly, resting her head on Qian Renshui's shoulder. "Tian Yao's been on Sea God Island for nearly 6 months now. She should be undergoing the Sea God's trials by this time, right?" Qian Renshui replied, counting the months in her head. Chapter 271 Maritime. Yishi nodded lightly, a thoughtful look shading her features. "The Sea God's evaluation," she murmured. "I wonder what kind of reward the Sea God gives," Qian Renshui said. "It shouldn't be stingy, right?" Yishi considered the divinities she knew. Among them, the ones most likely to favor their legacy holders were the Asura God, the God realm's law enforcer, strict and impartial, who followed rules to the letter, and the Sea God, who respected regulations. So Yishi guessed the Sea God's reward wouldn't be meager. "We'll see when we get there," she said. "I don't think it will be bad." "What if the Sea God is stingy and won't let us take part in the assessment?" Qian Renshui asked. "After all, strictly speaking, we're legacy holders of other divinities going to the Sea God's domain to collect rewards." Yishi tapped Qian Renshui's head and then sat cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. When Qian Renshui prepared to meditate, Yishi didn't disturb her. She, too, settled into a meditative posture. God Realm, Sea God Hall. The Sea God and the Asura God sat facing each other. The Asura God wore a worried expression, rubbing his fingers together. "Brother Sea God, I am the law enforcer of the God Realm. Everyone knows I've always been impartial. You're really putting me in an awkward spot." The Sea God smiled faintly. "Brother Asura, isn't your legacy holder almost at Sea God Island? And aren't you perfectly comfortable on my island?" The Asura God teased, eyes warm. The Sea God held up a finger, hinting slyly. The Asura God feigned indignation. "What are you implying? I, the Asura God, the dignified law enforcer of the God Realm, would never secretly break the rules. But," he added with a benevolent grin, "doing something reasonable within the rules isn't impossible." "When have we ever broken the God Realm's rules?" the Sea God said lightly, patting the Asura God on the shoulder. They exchanged matching smiles, easy, companionable. At that moment, the Sea God Hall doors opened. A figure in a black robe stepped inside, his face hidden in shadow. "Asura, Sea God, what are you two talking about?" a sinister voice asked. The Asura God raised an eyebrow as the God of Evil drew near. "You seem unusually cheerful," the God of Evil observed. "I have something to discuss," the God of Evil said. "You know I made a bet with goodness, and will soon descend to the lower realm for reincarnation, but I still don't have a legacy holder." He trailed off as the Asura God cut in, calm and measured. "Evil, the matter of legacy holders must be left to its natural course. You can't force it." "Left to its natural course?" the God of Evil scoffed. "How is that faster than finding one conveniently? Why not talk it over?" "Nothing to discuss," the Asura God replied bluntly. "Don't even try. There's no entrance, and the windows are sealed," he added, shaking his head. The God of Evil placed a hand on the Asura God's shoulder, pleading, "Nothing to discuss?" "Nothing," the Asura God repeated. Rising, he walked toward the Sea God Hall's exit, the God of Evil trailing at his side. The sea god watched them go for a moment, then remained seated, thoughtful. On the continent, an endless sea. Below deck, on a sea demon ship, Captain Hyder sat in the main chair, turning a ring on his finger. "They're clearly wealthy and noble at a glance," his first mate murmured. "If we strip them of their spirit artifacts, we'll be rich. The captain will reward us, and Captain Purple Pearl has peculiar tastes. He likes beautiful people." "If," Hyder kept turning the ring, expression distant. "What are you worried about?" the first mate pressed. "This isn't land. In this vast sea, a few people disappearing goes unnoticed," the first mate whispered. "Why rush?" Hyder spoke quietly, with an unsettling calm. "I have my own plans. It's getting late. You should rest." The first mate hesitated, then withdrew silently. After he left, Hyder clasped his hands and fell into thought. Night passed. Morning came. Sunlight scattered across the waves. The cabin door opened, and Qian Renshui and Ye Shi stepped out onto the deck, letting the cool sea breeze wash over them. Ye Shi stretched and let out a contented breath. "The view at sea is still beautiful," she said, her bright eyes sweeping the horizon. "It's beautiful, but dangerous," Qian Renshui replied, watching the water. "Sea spirit beasts can be as formidable as those on land, and often more dangerous. Ordinary spirit masters find it hard to fight effectively at sea." Ye Shi nodded. Her angel spirit favored the sky. She was no expert on sea combat. If she had to fight on the waves, her effectiveness would be limited. "Two beautiful young ladies up so early?" Hyder's voice came from behind. They turned to see him approaching and greeted him with brief nods. "You sail a lot," Qian Renshui said softly. "You must know something about the powerful sea spirit beasts." "When you sail, you keep a mental chart of dangers," Hyder answered. "We avoid the territories of powerful spirit beasts." "Do you know if there are any light attribute sea spirit beasts?" Qian Renshui asked. "Around 100,000 years old?" Hyder frowned in thought. "There might be. There's said to be a spirit beast called the Glorious Dragon Carp, an overlord of a certain sea region. Whether it's 100,000 years old, I don't know for sure." "Glorious Dragon Carp," Qian Renshui repeated, the name settling in her mind as she considered it. Chapter 272, Throw Them into the Sea to Feed the Fish. Ye Shi glanced at Qian Renshui, then asked Captain Hyder a few questions before telling him to prepare breakfast. Once it was ready, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, Ling Yao, and the others came out of their cabins one by one. Breakfast was still mainly seafood, but Captain Hyder had added a few crabs. Nothing extraordinary, but enough to fill their stomachs. After eating, everyone gathered on deck to enjoy the sea breeze and the view. Ling Yao stood just behind Ye Shi and Qian Renshui. Her voice was soft but edged. "Someone here isn't being honest," she said. "If they're not honest, throw them to the fish," Ye Shi replied lightly, her pale blue eyes fixed on the rippling water. Qian Renshui nodded in agreement, wordless. The sea stayed calm for several days. On the 8th morning, a thin mist lay over the water. Captain Hyder arrived with breakfast as usual, but this time the spread was richer. Bread, fish soup, smoked salmon, and even a small jar of caviar. "Honored guests," Captain Hyder said with a proud smile as he set the tray down, "today's caviar is very precious. If sold inland, its price would be close to gold. I wouldn't normally bring this out for ordinary passengers." Ye Shi leaned forward and sniffed at the food. The motion made the captain visibly tense, his hands clenched involuntarily. "Smells good," she said. "It should taste good too," she added, and casually snapped her fingers. Ling Yao, seated nearby, rose and moved toward the railing without hesitation. Captain Hyder exhaled as if relieved. "Young miss, surely you're only joking. Food at sea can't compare to inland fare. It's just to fill the stomach." None of the nobles, Ye Shi, Qian Renshui, Du Guyan, or Ye Lingling, touched their plates. Captain Hyder blinked. "Young ladies, why aren't you eating?" "Why do you think we wouldn't?" Ye Shi returned with a half-smile. He was about to answer when the ship's first mate and several crew members were suddenly flung overboard. Ling Yao stood a short distance away, watching with a steady expression. Captain Hyder's face fell, a shadow passed over his features. "You've got one chance," Ye Shi said quietly. "Eat the breakfast. If nothing happens, I'll apologize. But if there's any problem, if you refuse, then we'll just throw you to the fish." Captain Hyder stared at the dishes, obviously unwilling to eat. He raised his head, spirit rings glowed beneath his feet as he prepared to react. But before he could, Ling Yao had crossed the deck and seized him by the throat. "A five-ring spirit king," she murmured, disdain clear in her voice. "And you still want to resist?" With a light squeeze, she carried him to the rail, snapped his neck with a practiced motion, and let his body drop into the sea. The first mate and the remaining crew watched in stunned silence, eyes wide. "Young miss, please, we didn't know. He coveted the items in your spirit tools. We had no part in it," the first mate blurted out, followed by the others. "We can still sail the ship. Don't do this to us." "If you were unaware, how did you know he coveted our spirit tools?" Yeshi asked coolly. "And if you really can sail the ship, how will you handle powerful sea spirit beasts around here?" Ling Yao looked at them and then at Yeshi. Yeshi raised a hand. "Throw them to feed the fish." There was no hesitation. Ling Yao tossed the remaining guilty crew overboard with the same brisk efficiency as the captain. The motion was clinical, decisive. "We can't keep this ship," the first mate complained before he was hauled away. "The rest of the journey isn't far. We'll fly from here." "Ling Yao, take Yan Yan and Lingling," Yeshi said. She and Chan Rensha stood, and behind them, the 10-winged slaughter angel and 10-winged angel spirits unfolded their wings. With a soft beat, they lifted into the sky toward Sea God Island. Ling Yao took Du Guyan and Ye Lingling by the hands and followed. Flying was far faster than traveling by ship. Within blinks of an eye, their forms vanished toward the horizon. Sea God Island. On the long white staircase that curved like a jade belt, Tian Yao stood with more than 800 stone steps behind her. She looked up at the steps yet to climb, thoughtful. "Only a little over 100 steps left until I pass the first assessment," she told herself. With a long breath, she descended a few steps to rest. As she settled, Poseidon appeared at her side as if materializing from the mist. "Senior," Tian Yao asked with a hopeful edge, "have the young masters and misses arrived at Sea God Island yet?" Poseidon shook his head gently. "No, they haven't arrived." Tian Yao sat down again, eyes fixed on the stairway. "How many steps can you climb now?" Poseidon asked after a moment. 812, she replied earnestly. "I think in at most another month I can finish the first assessment." "Then focus on your ascent," Poseidon said softly. "When Sheer and the others arrive, I'll let you know immediately." With that, he turned and walked toward his chamber, leaving Tian Yao to watch the jade stairs and wait. Chapter 273, Poseidon Island. The endless ocean stretched in every direction. After 2 days at sea, the outline of Sea God Island finally appeared on the horizon before Yeshi, Qian Renshui, and the others. As they drew closer, the island's shape grew clearer. In the waters around it, the silhouettes of devil spirit great white sharks drifted lazily. One of them had already fixed its attention on Yeshi and the group. When they entered the nearer waters, one devil spirit great white shark sprang out of the sea. A bloom of sea blue light flashed across its body, and mid-leap, it transformed into a tall, exotic-looking young woman. "Sea God Island," she announced. "Unauthorized personnel, keep out!" The voice carried a hint of majesty. "Devil Spirit Great White Shark King, Xiao Bai?" Yeshi asked tentatively as she regarded the figure. Xiao Bai's gray-blue eyes met Yeshi's bright azure. "We heard about you from Senior Poseidon," she said. "At the time, Senior Poseidon invited us to be guests on Sea God Island, but we had things to attend to, and we arrived later than expected," Qian Rensha replied quietly. "You can ask Senior Poseidon. She'll confirm it." Xiao Bai studied them for a long moment. Her human form was striking. Long gray-blue hair, lively gray-blue eyes, fair skin that held a subtle sheen, and sharply defined features. Yeshi watched her carefully, thinking about how to keep Xiao Bai from causing trouble. In the sea, Xiao Bai's power was that of a titled Douluo, formidable even if it might be diminished on land. More strength, Yeshi thought, was always something to respect. "You wouldn't happen to be Yeshi and Qian Renshui, would you?" Xiao Bai asked. "Yes." Yeshi twirled a fingertip and smiled pleasantly. "That's right. Then you may pass." Xiao Bai glanced at them and slipped back into the water, allowing them to approach the island. They exchanged looks as Xiao Bai returned to the sea, then moved toward Sea God Island. Stepping ashore and taking in the landscape, Yeshi couldn't help but admire it. "Sea God Island is beautiful," she murmured as she consolidated her spirit and descended onto the island proper. Qian Renshui, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, and the others all nodded in agreement. Not bad at all, Poseidon's voice called from nearby. Everyone turned toward the sound, and when they saw Poseidon, both Ye Shi and Qian Renshui offered polite smiles. Senior, they greeted, bowing slightly. You arrived a bit late, Poseidon said with an amused smile. Tian Yao has been thinking about you. She waved them to follow. We think of Tian Yao often, too, Ye Shi replied, falling in step beside her. How is Tian Yao? Tian Yao's strength has improved considerably, Poseidon said after a moment. She's close to passing the first trial of the Sea God 9 trials. Where is she now? Qian Renshui asked. I already had someone notify her. You brought us here for the Sea God's assessment, right? Poseidon looked toward Du Guyan and Ye Lingling as she spoke. Follow me to the sacred pillar platform, Poseidon said, smiling gently at Ye Shi and Qian Renshui before leading them toward the platform. At the sacred pillar platform, a robust middle-aged man in black approached and bowed deeply to Poseidon. Great priest, he greeted respectfully. Seahorse sacred pillar. You may begin their trial assessment, Poseidon instructed, indicating Ye Shi, Qian Renshui, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling, then stepped back beside Ling Yan. Poseidon already had a good sense of what level of assessment each would receive. Ye Shi and Qian Renshui, as legacy holders of a divinity, were exceptionally talented. With the Sea God 9 trials activated, they would likely receive a top-tier assessment or a companion assessment to assist Tian Yao. Poseidon estimated Du Guyan would land around a Black 6 trial, with Ye Lingling slightly lower. The Seahorse Sacred Pillar set the assessments in motion, and the results matched Poseidon's expectations. Ye Shi and Qian Renshui received companion assessments within the Red trials. Du Guyan received a Black 6 trial. Ye Lingling received a Black 5 trial. Just then, a voice called out nearby. Young miss, young lord. They turned to see Tian Yao jogging toward them, smiling as she arrived. Oh, Yan Yan, Ling Ling, you're here too, she greeted cheerfully. Poseidon stepped forward and briefly explained their first assessment. Your first trial is the Sea God's Light. Tian Yao knows where it is. Let her take you there, she said. Turning to Ye Shi and Qian Renshui, she added, Your assessment is to accompany and assist Tian Yao in passing it. Then Poseidon addressed Ling Yan more gently. They are very safe on Sea God Island. Come with me for now. Ling Yan hesitated only a moment, looking to Ye Shi for confirmation. After Ye Shi nodded slightly, she left with Poseidon. Tian Yao then led Ye Shi, Qian Renshui, Du Guyan, Ye Lingling, and the others toward the trial site. As they walked, Tian Yao talked about life on Sea God Island and the island's situation. Everyone listened and nodded along. Soon they approached the trial location. Before them rolled a staircase, pale and smooth like a jade belt, descending into the island. Chapter 274, The Light of Poseidon, Not Difficult. Tian Yao pointed at the stairs ahead with a smile in her eyes. This is where the first assessment takes place. There are 1,001 steps. We just need to climb them. You and Lingling are taking the Black level assessment, so it should be much easier. I can already do over 800 steps now, so this won't be a problem. A sly look crossed Tian Yao's face. She knew very well how difficult the Sea God's Light could be. Otherwise, she wouldn't have spent months training to reach 800 steps. She wasn't sure whether Ye Shi and Qian Renshui could match that, but she did know Du Guyan and Ye Lingling's capabilities. By her estimate, even if the Black level test was easier than the Sea God 9 trials, they wouldn't climb as high as her on their first try. No difficulty? Du Guyan asked. Shall we try together? Ye Lingling urged. They exchanged glances and eagerness flashed across both their faces. Come on, let's go. Tian Yao patted her chest and led Du Guyan and Ye Lingling toward the stairs, while Ye Shi and Qian Renshui stood back and watched for a moment. Sea God's Light, Qian Renshui murmured. I wonder which is easier, the light or the angel god's 9-layered stairs. Ye Shi looked at her and smiled. We'll know once we try. They stretched, toes touching the ground, then shot forward like arrows loosed from a bow. Their speed was astonishing. In a blink, they had reached the first step. The gravity and rebound of the stair barely slowed them. Their pace held steady as they climbed. 10 steps, 50 steps. By the 120th step, they had already caught up to Du Guyan and Ye Lingling. They didn't slow. By the 200th step, Ye Shi and Qian Renshui had passed Tian Yao and continued upward. Tian Yao paused where she stood and watched. The two were climbing at an almost constant speed. By the 400th step, they only slowed very slightly, a negligible change. Passing the 500th, their speed eased a little more, but it was still comfortable. It wasn't until around the 900th step that the pressure on them became obvious, but still within their tolerance. Footsteps grew heavier as they neared the 1000th step, but seeing the final step ahead, they took the last stride with determination. They landed on the last step, and the pressure immediately eased. Both of them exhaled in unison. "This assessment is easier than I expected," Yeshi said, glancing back. "It is easier than I thought," Qian Renshui agreed softly. Then she added, thoughtful, "But it seems the assessment scales with the ones taking it. That means the difficulty might be tied to whoever's strength it's matching." Yeshi turned to look at Tian Yao, who stood a little below. Under their scrutiny, Tian Yao, around the 200th step, blinked in bafflement. Was Sea God's light really that easy? How had these two just rushed up in one go? Tian Yao's mind raced. If she remembered correctly, when she reached the 800th step, Poseidon had praised her talent, ranking her among the continent's top-tier geniuses. She was a spirit king before 20, certainly a genius. But there was a significant difference between genius and prodigy. On the continent, an innate spirit power of level 7 could make one a genius. Only those who stood out among geniuses were called prodigies. Clearly, Yeshi and Qian Renshui were prodigies. Realizing that, Tian Yao sprang forward again and continued climbing. Du Guyan and Ye Lingling at the back showed no surprise at Yeshi and Qian Ren's performance. To them, this was completely normal. After all, they had seen a 6-ring spirit emperor with a 100,000-year spirit ring before. Yeshi's 6th spirit ring, they knew, was over 300,000 years old. At the top, Yeshi watched Tian Yao, who now stood around the 870th step, about 100 steps below them. She then turned to Qian Renshui and asked with a hint of amusement, "Sister, should we help her?" "Help," Qian Renshui blinked. Yeshi smiled slightly. "Give her a hand." Qian Renshui's eyes met Yeshi's, and she understood immediately. Tian Yao was close but struggling. A little boost could make the difference. She nodded once. Yeshi came down the stairs and stood beside Tian Yao. "Young miss," she said calmly. Tian Yao looked up, puzzled but trusting. "Get ready," Yeshi instructed. "I'll count to 3 and send you up." Tian Yao braced herself. "Okay." Yeshi touched Tian Yao's arm. 3! Before Tian Yao could register anything else, Yeshi's grip exploded with force, and her body was flung forward like a cannonball. "Huh?" Tian Yao began to protest. Where had 1 and 2 gone? But there was no time. Qian Renshui calculated the landing and moved to catch her. Tian Yao was already 50 steps from the final step before she could react. Qian Renshui received her and, using the same technique, sent her flying again toward the top. Yeshi dashed past Qian Renshui and watched Tian Yao's arc. As Tian Yao was about to land on the final step, Yeshi reached out and caught her, securing her safely on the topmost stair. Chapter 275, Second Trial, The Ring Sea. Just as Tian Yao steadied herself on the last step, a majestic voice echoed in the minds of Qian Renshui, Yeshi, and Tian Yao. "Legacy Bearer, Tian Yao has completed the Sea God's first trial. Reward, lifespans of all spirit rings increased by 300 years. Sea God affinity increased by 5%. Companions, Qian Renshui, Yeshi, assisted Legacy Bearer Tian Yao in completing the trial. Reward, lifespans of all spirit rings increased by 300 years. Sea God's second trial, break through the ring sea blockade. Conditions for passing, reach the opposite shore of the ring sea without killing any sea spirit beasts. Assistants may not use their spirit or spirit abilities." The proclamation barely faded when a shaft of golden light shot from the Sea God Hall and arced over the water. It landed on the ring sea and unfurled into a shimmering curtain that stretched straight to the far shore. Strange circles of energy rippled across the surface of that light barrier. Standing there, looking at the curtain and the faint shapes of devil spirit great white sharks lingering in the water beyond, Tian Yao's gaze drifted to Qian Renshui and Yeshi. "How do we get across this second trial?" she asked, full of anticipation. The restriction that assistants could not use their spirit or spirit abilities sat heavily between them. To Tian Yao, though, it didn't seem fatal. Her young miss was formidable even without channeling, and she suspected the young lord would be no weaker. Qian Renshui said nothing, instead watching Ye Shi. The conditions made it clear the route would be swarmed by sea spirit beasts, and, as assistants, neither Qian Renshui nor Ye Shi could use their spirit powers. That cut their effectiveness drastically. Worse, the trial took place in the sea. Even someone as capable as Qian Renshui would be at a disadvantage there without her full abilities. Ye Shi blinked a few times and then spoke, straightforward as ever. I can swim well enough, but fighting sea spirit beasts in the open sea without spirit or spirit abilities will cripple my strength. So, Tianyao trailed off, reading the meaning between the lines. My situation is the same. Ye Shi finished for her. Qian Renshui shook her head as if to clear her thoughts. Tianyao looked puzzled. Young miss, young lord, what should we do then? Qian Renshui and Ye Shi turned their attention away from the curtain and toward the steps where Du Guyan and Ye Lingling were still sitting. If the designated assistants couldn't use their powers, weren't there still two other people present? Tianyao followed their gaze, and when she saw the two girls, her eyes lit up. Du Guyan and Ye Lingling both felt that look and suddenly became self-conscious. For some reason, Tianyao's attention toward them seemed oddly excited. Stay here with Yan Yan and Lingling, Tianyao. Ye Shi and I will scout the surroundings, Qian Renshui said, taking Ye Shi's hand. They walked down to the shoreline together. The light curtain shimmered under the afternoon sun, and beneath the lacquered surface, the silhouettes of great white sharks drifted like shadows. Both of them grew serious. Tianyao's second trial will be hard, Qian Renshui said, voice measured. We have to break the Ring Sea's blockade. Outsiders shouldn't be able to enter, and we can't kill any sea spirit beasts. The biggest problem will be supplies. Ye Shi's expression tightened. I prepared food back in Vast Sea City. It should be enough for 5 people for about 10 days. Qian Renshui glanced at the spirit tool Ye Shi kept by her. 10 days? That should be enough, Ye Shi answered. If Yan Yan and Lingling's first attempts don't work, we'll just throw them up there. Qian Renshui shot her a questioning look. Ye Shi considered the idea and nodded. Try a few days on your own. If it's not enough, we'll help send them up. They turned back toward the steps. Du Guyan and Ye Lingling had already come down and were resting near the base. Ye Shi crouched in front of them and asked softly, How far did you get on your first attempt? Du Guyan answered earnestly, I reached over 430 layers. Ye Lingling's voice remained cool as ever. I'm over 370. The reward for the first trial is good, Ye Shi said, smiling. All Spirit Ring lifespans increased by 300 years. The second trial's already started, so don't rush. Try for a few more days, and if you can't make it, we'll toss you up there. Toss? Us up there? Du Guyan's face went pale at the thought. Don't worry, it's safe, Ye Shi said with an oddly friendly grin. You won't get hurt. Ye Lingling hesitated for only a moment. I'll try again on my own first, she said, and began to climb the steps. Du Guyan, not wanting to be left behind, followed. Ye Shi and Qian Renshui exchanged a quick look before turning toward the sea. Tianyao found a quiet spot and watched Du Guyan and Ye Lingling's renewed attempts. Qian Renshui settled on a large rock, while Ye Shi curled up on her lap, one arm draped around Qian Renshui's graceful neck as they took in the scenery. The moment was calm and oddly domestic, despite the looming trial. Xier, Qian Renshui murmured into Ye Shi's ear, amusement in her voice. All your spirit rings must be at least 1,000 years by now, right? Ye Shi nodded. The angel's first trial added 50 years. The sea god's first trial added 300. She smiled faintly. My first spirit ring was over 600 years before. With these rewards, it's now reached 1,000. They sat watching the light curtain and the dark water beyond, both knowing that the second trial would test more than strength. It would test strategy, supply, and restraint. Chapter 276, Sea God is more generous than the angel god. Qian Renshui pinched Ye Shi's cheek. When I heard about the sea god's reward just now, I had to say it. The sea god is much more generous than the angel god. For the same first trial, the angel god only grants 50 extra years, but the sea god gives 300. Ye Shi nodded in agreement. Compared to the sea god, the angel god did seem stingy, and his judgment had been questionable. Heaven Do City. In the main hall of the Frost Snow Pavilion, Ye Qingxue sat at the table on the left, handling official matters. A steward bowed and reported, Hallmaster, the Dragon Duke Meng Shu's family has declined our invitation and joined the Tang sect. Also, Ning Fengji of the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School has been moving closer to the Tang sect recently. Joined the Tang sect? Ye Qingxue lifted her head slowly and glanced toward the Tang sect's direction. They're developing quickly. With Tang Xiao backing them and Ning Fengji's covert support, it's understandable that Dragon Duke Meng Shu chose the Tang sect. She handed the steward the list in her hand. According to this, send the necessary supplies to Snowy Domain City in the far north. The steward accepted the list, bowed respectfully, and withdrew. On the other side of the city, the former Strength Clan residence, after a few renovations, had become the Tang sect. In its main hall, Tang San sat in the central seat, smiling at Meng Shu below him. Tang San was naturally pleased that Dragon Duke Meng Shu had joined. Meng Shu was an 8-ring spirit Douluo, and with spirit fusion alongside the snake dowager Chao Tianxiang, he could rival a titled Douluo. That strength was a tremendous asset for the fledgling Tang sect. The 3 strongest in the Tang sect were currently Taitan, Meng Shu, and Bai He. The rest were the original members of the Strength Clan, the Speed Clan, and Meng Shu's family. Senior Meng Shu, welcome to the Tang sect, Tang San said with a gentle smile. Sect Master, you are too polite, Meng Shu replied with a faint smile, though a trace of thoughtfulness lingered in his eyes. A few days ago, both the Frost Snow Pavilion and the Tang sect had come to court him almost at the same time, and both offers had been generous. The Frost Snow Pavilion had offered him a hallmaster position. The Tang sect had offered the same, and promised his family would not become subordinates. At present, the Frost Snow Pavilion was clearly stronger, but the Tang sect had Tang Xiao of the Clear Sky sect backing it, and the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School secretly supporting it. After weighing his options, Meng Shu had decided the Tang sect offered better long-term prospects. Those who joined early would receive special treatment. Sect Master, given our current situation, we can at most establish ourselves in Heavendo City. Which noble families or sects do you think we can still persuade to join us? Tang San asked earnestly. Taitan and Meng Shu fell silent, exchanging looks. Finally, Taitan spoke, his voice steady and powerful. Sect Master, I think we shouldn't waste effort trying to sway the major forces around Heavendew City. Instead, we should focus on smaller sects and independent spirit masters. In that case, we'll have to ask Senior Bai He and the Speed Clan to go and recruit them, he added. Tang San bowed his head, thinking deeply. He was determined to develop the Tang sect. This affected whether he could return to the Clear Sky sect and acknowledge his ancestors, and whether he could avenge his father. He still remembered Tang Hao's death in the Stardow Great Forest. When Senior Bai He returns, tell him the Speed Clan needs to go after medium and small sects and noble families, he said. I'm going to Shrek Academy first. Sect Master, I will pass the message when he returns, Taitan replied. Tang San rose and left the main hall, walking out into the busy streets. He headed toward Shrek Academy, lost in thought. As he walked, he noticed something was off. The bustling crowd on the street seemed to vanish, and after a long walk, he found himself back where he had started. A faint, almost imperceptible purple light glinted at the corner of his vision as he scanned his surroundings. This is an illusion, Tang San muttered, his hand drifting to the spirit tool at his waist. His gaze locked onto a figure cloaked in black, a person hidden under a black robe, wearing a ghostly mask with an ambiguous smile. Though the figure's features were concealed, there was an air of elegance in every motion. Who are you? Tang San asked. A hoarse, androgynous voice emerged from beneath the mask. I come from the far north. The spirit hall calls people like me evil soul masters. Do you want to make a deal? Evil soul masters? Tang San's expression darkened. Evil soul masters are executed by everyone. Why would I make a deal with you? The black-robed figure laughed softly. Executed by everyone? Maybe I deserve punishment, but not now. Listen to my offer first, then decide. They stepped in close and spoke in tones only Tang San could hear. As the words reached him, Tang San's brows tightened. I'm returning to the far north, the figure said. Take these 2 items. I hope you won't need them. A token and a book appeared before Tang San. Before he could respond, the illusion shattered like a mirror, and the black-robed figure melted back into the crowd. Tang San examined the token and the book, weighing the risks and benefits. "I'll keep them for now," he murmured. "I won't use them unless I have to." He tucked the items away and continued on his way to Shrek Academy. Chapter 277, Through the Ring Sea, Sea God Island. On the 1001st step, Duguyan and Ye Lingling arced through the air in a perfect parabola and landed on the topmost step. Qian Renshui looked up and reached out to steady them as they touched down. With that, their first assessment was complete. The reward for passing was the same for everyone. Each of their spirit rings would age by 300 years. "You two rest for a bit," Yeshi said. "Adjust your states. We're preparing for the second assessment, the Ring Sea." Yeshi sat on the steps, her blue eyes fixed on the direction of the Ring Sea. Qian Renshui settled beside her, a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Duguyan and Ye Lingling released their spirits to inspect their spirit rings. After the 300-year increase, Duguyan's rings now read 1 yellow, 3 purple, and 1 black, 5 rings in total. Ye Lingling's had become 1 yellow and 3 purple, 4 rings. They recalled their spirits, sat cross-legged, and began refining their states. Time passed slowly. After about an hour, Duguyan and Ye Lingling opened their eyes and walked over. "Xiaoxi, we're ready," Duguyan said. "We can try the second assessment now." Yeshi nodded. Qian Renshui and Yeshi exchanged a quick glance, rose, and walked toward the Ring Sea, with Tianyao, Duguyan, and Ye Lingling flanking them. They entered the water first. Immediately, Yeshi and Qian Renshui felt a strange force pressing in. Their spirits and spirit abilities were restricted, their domains even sealed off, though they could still draw on spirit power itself. Tianyao, Duguyan, and Ye Lingling felt a similar restraint, but for them, spirits and domains remained usable. The far shore lay about 200 meters away. Through the clear water, they could see the sea spirit beasts ahead. Most were 1,000-year sea spirit beasts, but at the rear lurked a devil spirit great white shark, Xiaobai herself. Tianyao, Duguyan, and Ye Lingling released their spirits. Tianyao's slaughter god domain swelled outward from her like a black tide. They surged through the water like arrows. Tianyao led, clearing the path. In the sea, the golden crocodile king, Tianyao's spirit, could almost unleash its full power, and with a domain and spirit abilities in play, the 1,000-year beasts were driven off or handled by Duguyan. Ye Lingling rode in the middle, watching and maintaining their formations. Ye Shi and Qian Renshui were comparatively relaxed at the edges. The sea beasts largely ignored them. All the predator's attention was on Tianyao. When they'd gone about 100 meters, the number of beasts increased and their forward progress slowed. A little farther in, around 150 meters, Tianyao's vision blurred and Xiaobai leapt into view. Their eyes met, and Tianyao thought she saw amusement in the shark's gaze. Xiaobai spun elegantly, her tail whipping against Tianyao and sending her flying. Duguyan and Ye Lingling were next to take contact. As for Yeshi and Qian Renshui, Xiaobai swam right past them without a glance. Someone above had evidently ordered Xiaobai to ignore these two. They were to pass unmolested. Seeing the shark glide by, the two of them exchanged a look and silently swam straight for the far shore. Sparring with Xiaobai in the water would have been a losing gamble, no matter how they'd teamed up. Without full use of their abilities, they'd likely have been crushed. In the air, perhaps they might have tried, but in the Ring Sea it was pointless. They reached the far bank, surfaced, and climbed out. Their clothes clung to their skin, dripping. They glanced back at the water and by mutual unspoken agreement decided to find a place to change first. They were only assistants in the assessment, and from what they'd seen, the outcome would depend mostly on Tianyao. "Young miss?" "Young lord." Ling Yuan appeared behind them with towels and spoke as she handed them over. "The great priestess has prepared rooms. You can go rest." "All right, then let's go," Qian Renshui said, drying her hair. Yeshi followed suit as Ling Yuan led them toward the rooms. Meanwhile, a short distance away on the seashore, Tianyao, Duguyan, and Ye Lingling finally flew out of the water in another perfect parabola and landed heavily on the sand. "Xiaobai!" Tianyao pushed herself up and glared at the shark as it surfaced. Anger flickered in her eyes. Xiaobai's gaze was full of mischief. She splashed playfully, sending a wall of water at the trio and soaking them before slipping back beneath the waves. That little, she did that on purpose. Tian Yao scrambled to her feet, glaring at the sea. But then she froze. Where are young Miss and the others? Duguyan spat seawater from his mouth and pointed to the opposite shore. When I was thrown, I saw Xiao Shi and the others had already swum over. Tian Yao followed his finger and stared, as if her mind had crashed. How did they get all the way over there? They couldn't use spirit abilities. Xiao Bai's 100,000-year spirit beast. How could they fight through her? Her bewilderment hung in the air. Ye Lingling pushed herself up, eyes serious as she studied the waves. Tian Yao, what if we try to outsmart her? With the three of us charging straight through, it seems unlikely we'll break past. Outsmart her, Tian Yao echoed. Yes. Ye Lingling looked at her with a steady expression. Before, with young Miss around, we could be straightforward. Now, we need a plan. Tian Yao's gaze shifted to Ye Lingling, searching for how they might turn the odds in their favor. Chapter 278. I read thousands of books, but I don't remember them. Seeing Tian Yao's expectant look, Ye Lingling shook her head decisively. I don't know. Tian Yao turned to Du Guyan. Du Guyan gave a slight shake of her head as well. I can't either. Not yet. But you said before that you'd learned everything Xiaoxi learned, Tian Yao protested. Think about it carefully. You've stayed on Sea God Island the longest. You should understand Xiaobai better than the rest of us. Du Guyan's face flushed faintly. She cleared her throat. Young Miss, I did learn everything she learned. Back then, I read tens of thousands of books, but there's a difference. Young Miss remembered everything she learned. I didn't remember a single thing. Her voice hushed. The memory of Qingluan's instruction flickered through her mind. Qingluan had spoken of the rare few who could grasp strategy and the larger picture, a kind of insight that turned a person into a formidable force. Even now, Du Guyan felt Qingluan's lessons were like scripture from the heavens, beyond ordinary comprehension. The three of them exchanged looks, then turned toward the sea. For a while they watched in silence, then slipped into a quieter corner to talk. Out on the placid water, Xiaobai popped her head up, glanced their way, and slipped back beneath the waves. Later, after a hot bath, Yeshi and Qian Renshui stepped from their room. Yeshi rubbed at a rumble in her stomach and looked at Ling Yuan standing in the doorway. Ling Yuan, is there anything to eat? No seafood. I want something different, Ling Yuan replied after a moment's thought, then bowed. Young Miss, young lord, please wait a moment. Ling Yuan had explored Sea God Island during Yeshi and Qian Renshui's first assessment. The island was small but complete. Everything one could need was there, and Ling Yuan knew exactly what provisions it held. Not long after, she returned carrying 2 snow-white rabbits, each likely over 10 jin, their fur still pristinely clean. Rabbits, Yeshi smiled at the sight. They're so cute, Yeshi murmured, looking at Ling Yuan and the rabbits. Qian Renshui reached over and gently stroked Yeshi's hair. On the opposite shore, little tongues of cooking smoke curled up into the air. It smells so good. Yeshi watched as Ling Yuan turned the roasting rabbits over the fire, the aroma thick and mouth-watering. Ling Yuan, put more chili and peppercorns on mine, she said with a laugh. For the other one, use less chili, Qian Renshui added, looping an arm around Yeshi's shoulder. Understood, young miss, young lord, Ling Yuan said dutifully, and continued to roast. When the rabbits were done, Ling Yuan handed them over. Yeshi tore off a piece and popped it into her mouth, her face lighting up. Ling Yuan, your roasting is amazing, crispy on the outside and tender inside. Qian Renshui nodded in appreciation as well. Ling Yuan stood quietly behind them, smiling. The two sat on the shore and ate, enjoying both the food and the view, the occasional shadowy forms leaping from the sea, the devil spirit great white shark cutting through the water with powerful arcs. With Xiao Bai here, I don't think the three of them are going to pass this assessment anytime soon, Qian Renshui said, tearing a piece of rabbit and offering it to Yeshi. This doesn't feel like a head-on test. Yeshi chewed slowly, leaning into Qian Renshui. You mean it's not about fighting Xiao Bai directly? Exactly. Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling, 2 spirit kings and a spirit ancestor, how could they break through Xiao Bai's defense in a straight fight? And when the 2 of us went down, our spirit and spirit abilities were sealed. Qian Renshui's eyes flashed as she considered it. Let's watch a bit longer. If they can't figure it out themselves, we'll go tell them. Yeshi nodded and went back to eating. By evening, after keeping watch, they noticed something odd. Xiaobai vanished from the Ring Sea for about 20 minutes. The disappearance wasn't long, but it was real. Just as we thought, Qian Renshui said. This assessment isn't about direct combat with Xiaobai. Yeshi rested her legs in Qian Renshui's lap and watched the darkening sky. Let's see if they discover it on their own first. If they can't, we'll tell them. Ling Yuan, standing behind them, looked up at the stars as if she saw nothing and knew nothing. A cool breeze moved through the shore, ruffling their hair. The two rose and headed back to their room to rest for the night. On the opposite side of the Ring Sea, Tian Yao launched herself in a perfect parabola out of the water and landed on the shore. Xiaobai popped her head up with a sly glint in her eyes. Damn it, so close, Tian Yao muttered, anger brightening her face. She'd been just 10 meters from the opposite shore when Xiaobai suddenly appeared and knocked her back. It wasn't a total loss. Tian Yao had noticed something else. Xiaobai sometimes left the Ring Sea for short periods, though she couldn't yet find the pattern. She walked back to Duguyan and Ye Lingling and shared what she'd observed. Yan Yan, Ling Ling, she said, pacing slowly, if we can figure out the rule for when Xiaobai leaves, with our strength we should be able to pass. Or we could just pay careful attention and charge the instant she leaves, Ye Lingling added, head bowed in thought. Then she looked up, expression serious. What if Xiaobai is deliberately absent sometimes to lure us into the Ring Sea? Tian Yao frowned. This is an assessment for us. I still feel like she's having fun, Ye Lingling murmured. She hadn't only noticed the absences, she'd seen that Xiaobai's arcs were getting more and more precise, each leap more perfect than the last. There was an almost playful intelligence in her movements, as if the shark were testing them as much for sport as for challenge. Chapter 279, Impossible. Xiaobai, isn't that kind of fish? Tian Yao stared at the placid sea, then at Ye Lingling across from her. She waved a small hand and said with stubborn conviction, Impossible. Xiaobai is a spirit beast guarding the outer perimeter of Sea God Island, the former Sea God's mount. She's simple-minded. She doesn't have tricks like that. She isn't that kind of fish. Splash. A sudden sheet of water crashed down on them. Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling turned to the sound and found themselves soaked as a huge spray landed right on them. From the wet clothes and the gleam in Xiaobai's eyes as the creature peeked from the sea, Du Guyan could see nothing simple-minded about her. Xiao, Bai, she called. Tian Yao rose, annoyed, but Xiaobai had already slipped back beneath the waves. After watching the sea a while longer, the three settled back into a cross-legged meditation, adjusting their states and preparing to try crossing the Ring Sea again the next day. Sunrises and sunsets passed. One dawn, light scattered across the water and made the surface glitter. Yeshi sat on the shore with a bowl of tremella soup, stirring gently as she watched the opposite bank. A breeze lifted her hair and skirt. Snow-white arms slid around her shoulders. They failed again this time, Qian Renshui said softly. Yeshi nodded, sipping her soup. From their vantage, Xiaobai was hiding behind a large reef, while Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling were making another attempt to reach the far shore. From Tian Yao's group, there was no sign of Xiaobai in the Ring Sea, the perfect moment to try crossing. 3 perfect parabolas cut the air. Like a prankster, Xiaobai leapt, sent up massive splashes, then dove back down. Yeshi and Qian Renshui watched, exchanged a look, and quietly left for their rooms to meditate and cultivate instead. As for Tian Yao and the others, who could see a rainbow without first facing wind and rain? They endured. For several days, Yeshi and Qian Renshui remained in their rooms cultivating. After a few days of effort, Qian Renshui's spirit power reached rank 79. On the 5th day, they were cultivating when a majestic voice filled their minds. Legacy holder, Tian Yao. Sea God 9 Trials 2 completed. Rewards, spirit power rank increased by 1. All personal spirit rings increased by 1,000 years. Sea God affinity increased by 10%. Assistant, Qian Renshui, assisted the legacy holder in completing the assessment. Rewards, spirit power rank increased by 1. all personal spirit rings increased by 1,000 years. 1 God-bestowed spirit ring. Ye Shi. Rewards. Spirit power rank increased by 1. All personal spirit rings increased by 1,000 years. Duguyan and Ye Lingling. Assessment completed. Rewards. Spirit power rank increased by 1. All personal spirit rings increased by 800 years. Sea God 9 Trials 3. Tidal Body Tempering. Completion requirements. Ye Lingling, Black Rank 5 Examiner. Persist 3 hours daily. Duguyan, Black Rank 6 Examiner. Persist 4 hours daily. Tian Yao, Sea God 9 Trials Examiner. Persist 12 hours daily. Assistants. Ye Shi and Qian Renshui assist the Sea God 9 Trials Examiner Tian Yao in completing the assessment. When the assessment officially begins, for the next 365 days, the average daily time must not be less than the above, otherwise the assessment fails. Ye Shi and Qian Renshui opened their eyes, exchanged a look, and got up. The rewards this time are generous, Ye Shi said. Not only did my spirit power go up a rank, I also got a God-bestowed spirit ring, Qian Renshui replied, a bright smile on her lips. The God-bestowed ring is special. It forms a spirit ability best suited to the bearer and can grow up to the bearer's own limit, essentially the maximum potential of that spirit ring. It's perfect, Ye Shi said. With that 1 rank increase, Sister's spirit power is exactly rank 80. The God-bestowed ring is well-timed. They walked to the coast together. On the sand, Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling sat cross-legged, still dripping as they adjusted their states. Poseidon stood quietly a little way off. Senior. Ye Shi and Qian Renshui bowed slightly to Poseidon. Poseidon nodded and produced a God-bestowed spirit ring, tossing it into the air. Absorb it here first. Qian Renshui sat and guided the ring to her with her spirit power. The ring, originally white, shifted colors at a dizzying speed. Yellow, purple, black. When it reached black, the change slowed, but the color kept deepening as the ring's age limit climbed. Time passed. The ring darkened from black to the hue of a 100,000-year ring, and still its age continued to increase. Only when the God-bestowed ring's age reached 170,000 years did it barely reach Qian Renshui's limit. Then she began to absorb and refine it. Ye Shi watched for a moment, then walked over to Poseidon. Senior, for the 3rd assessment, can they try it out before the official assessment starts? Poseidon looked at Tian Yao, Du Guyan, and Ye Lingling and nodded gently. They can try it first. Although you and your sister are not required to participate, I recommend you try as well. Tidal body tempering is excellent for enhancing the physique. We'll try it, Ye Shi said seriously. I'll come back after she finishes absorbing the spirit ring. Poseidon inclined her head and walked toward the sea god hall. When Poseidon left, Ye Shi glanced at Qian Renshui still absorbing the ring, then at the 3 who were adjusting their states. Her gaze landed on Xiaobai, whose head peeked from the sea. A faint, nearly imperceptible smile curved Ye Shi's lips as she stepped to the shore and waved. Xiaobai, could you come over for a moment? I want to chat. Chapter 280. You're the sea god's mount. How could I fool you? Xiaobai, still in the water, watched Ye Shi for a moment, then swam over to the shore. When she reached the edge, a gray-blue light shimmered across her body, and she shifted into human form, stepping up to Ye Shi. What's wrong? She asked, her gray-blue eyes sizing Ye Shi up, puzzled at first by the intent behind the question. Xiaobai, I heard you're the spirit beast guarding Sea God Island. Have you always been here? Ye Shi sat down on the sand, a gentle smile on her face. Have you always been guarding Sea God Island? No. Xiaobai shook her head, her expression serious. Guarding Sea God Island is only part of my duty. I'm also Lord Sea God's mount. So Xiaobai is the Sea God's mount, Ye Shi said as if she had just realized it, feigning surprise before changing the subject smoothly. Then how about coming with us when the time comes? Xiaobai blinked and shook her head immediately. No, I still have to guard Sea God Island. I can't leave. Ye Shi wagged a finger lightly. Xiaobai, you're not just leaving the island. You're going to leave to protect the future Sea God. Which is more important, guarding Sea God Island or protecting the future Sea God? She asked. Xiaobai thought for a moment and answered without hesitation. Protecting the future Sea God is more important. Exactly. Ye Shi snapped her fingers. Look at Tian Yao. She's going through the Sea God 9 trials right now. If she passes, she'll become the future Sea God. And as the sea god's mount, wouldn't it make more sense for you to be by her side? Xiaobai considered Yexi's words. They sounded reasonable. Think about it, Yexi continued. Sea God Island has the Great Priest. If something happens the Great Priest can't handle, your being here won't necessarily fix it. As the devil spirit Great White Shark King, isn't it more meaningful to protect the future sea god while she's still weak? If you don't stay with her, then when she becomes sea god, she might find a new mount. Then you'd just be the former sea god's mount. 2 words can make a big difference. A small, knowing smile curved Yexi's lips. What I said makes a lot of sense, but why do I feel like you're trying to trick me? What if she ultimately fails the assessment and doesn't become the sea god? Xiaobai asked, fidgeting. She fell silent a moment, thinking. Xiaobai, how long have you lived? Yexi asked. How old am I compared to you? Xiaobai's expression hardened with pride. You are the sea god's mount, the devil spirit Great White Shark King. I'm just a girl. Do you think I could be fooled? Look at my eyes. Do you think I'm trying to trick you? Yexi said earnestly. Besides, during the Ring Sea assessment, why didn't the sea spirit beasts or you attack me? Xiaobai answered without thinking, because someone above us allowed it. Yexi pointed to the sky. Think about it carefully. Then think about what Tianyao, who holds the Sea God 9 trials, calls us. Xiaobai turned her gaze toward the Sea God Hall and then to Tianyao, who sat cross-legged. The idea of someone above them who could give special care made sense. If the Lord Sea God could grant special consideration, then his legacy bearer should benefit from it as well. That would greatly increase the chance of passing the assessment. The more she thought it over, the more she felt Yexi's argument held weight. Besides, Xiaobai had lived far longer than Yexi. She had seen more of the world. Yexi could not possibly be trying to trick her. Although what you said makes sense, if I'm to leave Sea God Island, I still have to inform the Great Priest, Xiaobai said thoughtfully, looking Yexi straight in the eye. Do you think the Great Priest would refuse? Yexi asked, placing a hand on Xiaobai's shoulder. Xiaobai shook her head matter-of-factly. Then it settled. Yexi smiled with relief, and seeing that smile, Xiaobai nodded firmly. She glanced behind her, then smoothly dove back into the water. A gray-blue glow filled her form as she transformed into the devil spirit Great White Shark and swam away with a triumphant flick of her tail. Tianyao, Xiaobai called, splashing the other with a huge wall of water. Tianyao, who had been sneaking up, scowled indignantly from where she stood on the shore. She had been knocked into the air by Xiaobai more times than she could count over the past few days. Xiaobai's tail sent a torrent of seawater toward her. Yexi and Tianyao both dodged, and Tianyao scolded, I won't fall for the same trick a 14th time. She had barely finished when another wave crashed right over her, and Xiaobai's smug laugh echoed from the sea. Tianyao stamped her foot in annoyance as Xiaobai slipped back beneath the surface. Yexi shook her head with a smile at the sight of Tianyao being tormented by a fish and then settled down beside Qian Renshui, closing her eyes to enter a meditative cultivation state. Qian Renshui's breathing was steady as she continued to absorb the god-bestowed spirit ring. Because the spirit ring was 170,000 years old, it couldn't be refined quickly. The absorption process stretched from day into night and back around. It took a full 4 days for Qian Renshui to complete the absorption. When it was done, her spirit ring arrangement had become 4 purple rings, 3 black rings, and 1 red ring, 8 rings in total. She exhaled softly, opened her eyes, stretched, and sat up. Turning her head, she saw Yexi still in meditation beside her. After checking her current spirit power rank and the 2 spirit abilities the god-bestowed spirit ring had granted her, Qian Renshui couldn't help but smile beautifully.